When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a morning spring, and the little Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. And when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they steal your heart away. When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a morning spring, and the little Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. And when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they can steal your heart away. We are live. We are live. Thank God Almighty, we are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Do not forget to ring the notification bell if you want to support. If you want to support this independent national college football rebel outpost with a donation, help us keep the lights on and grow the channel. Just hit that $ where you make a comment, and I will get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. Welcome on in, everybody. Yeah, I snuck one in on you. I sang you a song without giving you a warning about them apples. I got so much criticism lately for my performances. I thought I'd slip it in there before you guys could hit the mute button and get the dogs out of the house and all that stuff. Okay, it's been a very busy... It has been a very busy time here at Peek Around the Corner. And we are going to give you a Holy Smokes Theater update. Let me tell you a few things right off the bat. Let me give you some things right off. First of all, there is something looming over the theater that is not pictured in this. That's right. Right off the dribble. Right off the dribble. Jump and shoot, baby. Give me the pass. Bam. There's something looming over the theater. There's something looming over everything. And that is, and it continues to be, private equity, big money out there. That is what is that is in part driving the Cruz and Cantwell bill. It is driving a lot of decisions out there. It is the Big 12, right? We know what the Big 12 just did. We know that what Utah just did. What is not being communicated out there so much in public is the Big Ten, the SEC, some individual schools are still working on some sort of deals that everybody can agree upon. And let me, so that is looming over everything. The decisions that are going to be made here, it's all about the presidents and their votes, right? But they need to have a buy-in with their media partners, right? Well, they may have to have a buy-in with their now consultant but future partner that I think some of these conferences or all of these conferences are eventually going to have. Big 12 has Redbird Capital. So that is playing a big part in all of this. This adds another layer of cloak and dagger. A couple of years ago, we started saying private equity was going to invade the college sports world, but we did not know at what level. I kept saying, I don't know if it's coming at a school level, a conference level, some sort of ridiculous Super League level, whatever. But it's coming at a level even higher than all that. So it is looming out there. It is something to keep your mind on. This Holy Smokes Theater update is based upon the last 20 hours of information that I here at Peek Around the Corner have received coming off the article that Ross Dellinger wrote. There is a lot. Okay, so obviously we have reported to you for months. There has been a lot of talks, a lot of positioning, nothing done, nothing settled, nothing imminent. About eight days ago, you know the story, the Holy Florida State money perch, and then the Miami president, the quick strike potential out there. I will say this. Over the last 20 hours, I still do not believe anything is imminent. There definitely needs to be these planes, one plane, the one plane that really needs to land is the college football playoff format plane and the economics around that plane. That plane needs to land. Which I do think, again, more and more growing momentum towards the college football playoff of 24. And if we do get a grand compromise, a grand bargain sometime soon, that is going to be a great indicator that the SEC and the Big Ten are preparing for the quick strike. And we are going to continue to call it the quick strike here. You can call it the shot clock, whatever. What I'm about to say, I think, is probably the most important information that we received over the last 20 hours. And that is, the damage has been done, regardless of this bill. We're way past. The damage has been done. In other words, if this bill doesn't pass, that timeline has still quickened. The conversations, I'm not going to quite call them the hot bubble of action. I'm not there yet. But if I come on in, this is the first time I have said this since we did the hot bubble of action in regards to Colorado on May 7th. And then the news, we broke that news in the Oregon, Washington. This is the first time since then that I can look at all of you in this camera and say, I could be coming on here tomorrow and saying, we anticipate a hot bubble of action happening somewhere. And then I'm going to have to give you vague details, enough details. You know how that works here at Peek Around the Corner. I'll give you enough, though. So that is where we're at. We're not at the hot bubble of action, I don't think, phase of this. But now we are finally at the point where I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there, and we could get there quick. Not the final results of all this, but actual negotiations. I say that there's a lot I got to get through tonight, guys. So I'm gonna be all over the place. I'm gonna be all over the place. So please, be patient with me. Hopefully, there is no breaking news. Hopefully there is no breaking news while I do this live show. Bruce Harris, thank you so much, Bruce Harris. I appreciate it. $5 holla. Craig is so cold, it's not engagement farming, it's called ice fishing. Thank you so much for the $5 holla, Bruce Harris. Has any of you ever gone ice fishing? I've got a big scar right on my finger here because I was ice fishing. I was about 23, 24 years old. I had a tip up. A tip up is you actually don't have an ice house. You drill a hole in the water in the lake. You got to be so many yards off the lake shore, but it's got to be close enough to your cabin or whatever you got there, and you've got a flag. So if a fish grabs your lure below the water, above the ice, a flag flies up. It goes boom. It's called, we used to call it a tip up. I don't know what they call it now. And so you're looking out the lake, you're having a beer, you're eating food, you're looking out the lake, nothing is happening. And then suddenly the flag goes up. You get on your you run out there, you get on your snowmobile or whatever, and you get out there as quick as you can. And the tip was up. It went up. The flag went up. I went out there as fast as I could, and I forgot gloves. I'm there barehanded, middle of winter, Minnesota. I'm pulling this line, this thick line up, and there is this prehistoric looking massive northern. I put my hand in there and I get the fish out and I'm holding up the fish all proud, and there's blood running down my hand, and because the sharp teeth of the northern. So yeah, ice fishing. It's a beautiful thing. It's absolutely a beautiful thing. Thank you, Bruce Harris. Thank you for the $5 holler. Okay, back to the theater here. There is Notre Dame is at the center of the stage. They are the ones that still today is the straw that stirs the drink. That is where all the communication starts and ends, every single communication that is going on. I can tell you this, the Big Ten has had a recent presidential meeting on this. A recent presidential meeting on their membership. It just happened. I'm not going to give you the exact date, but it just happened. Before we're going to go back in the theater. I do want to thank Flint Dog, Michigan Wolverine, part of the PATC family, sent me the article, the Detroit Free Press. This does not surprise me at all. This was today, 5/22. It just went out about an hour ago. Detroit Free Press, Tony Garcia. The Michigan president is not happy. The interim president, Domenico Grasso, addressed the departure of former Michigan basketball coach Dusty May, calling the move a bellwether for college athletics. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Grasso said about the Protect the College Sports Act could provide greater stability, clearer national standards, and more consistent rules to college athletics. But he also says it's deeply concerning, it has deeply concerning provisions. Rather than looking to conferences such as the Big Ten as models of athletic and academic excellence, it imposes restrictions that disproportionately affect the institution, he said. Among the most troubling provisions are targeted limits on conference expansion and realignment, as well as harmful restrictions on student athletes' ability to benefit from additional NIL opportunities. These measures will reduce the universities' and conference flexibility to adapt to changing conditions for student innovative opportunities. So the president of Michigan comes out and says, you're limiting our conference expansion and realignment opportunities, and he came out against it. Now, that's not, of course, that's not a surprise, but he comes out in public. We know that the Big Ten just had a meeting on all of this. They're trying to get everything, their ducks in a row, in case they have to do the quick strike. So this is getting closer and closer and closer to becoming operational. There's a couple of things we're missing in this story. And I've spent 20 hours poking and prodding on this. Number one, I still can't get my hands on a couple of different leaks coming out of potential or current media partners. That is one major piece of the story that is missing. And maybe I'm just missing it, and maybe it's out there. And number two, the Big Ten, again, they need to know what the college football playoff format is going to look like. They got to know what that looks like. They got to know not just the format, they got to know the playoff distribution, does the percentage, they've got to know everything about it. They've got to know everything about, or almost everything about it. This is what we've been told, and this is what we've been told in the last 20 hours. So again, we wait to see more possible momentum for an agreement on a big, expansive college football playoffs, which is getting more and more momentum. And I think the momentum is coming from the SEC side as well. Of course it is. Back to the theater. Notre Dame the walls have not closed in this much ever at Notre Dame. They have prepared themselves for this outcome. Remember, Notre Dame and the Big Ten talk all the time. They have prepared for this scenario, if it ever should happen. And all the indications is the scenario is happening. Notre Dame, there are options that are completely off the table for Notre Dame as we sit here on June 25th. They're not joining the ACC conference in football. That's obvious. Notre Dame is already starting to shrink their investment in their Olympic sports, which they cannot abide. We're almost at the point, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at the point where Notre Dame is going to have to figure out if they want to be the first one in the boat or the last one in the boat. We had a live show yesterday, and I got a few nasty comments on it, but that's the way it is. What I do here at Peek Around the Corner is we try to give you the most accurate peek around the corner that there is, and I'll let our track record speak for itself. The Southeastern Conference is sitting on a gold mine. I get it. A lot of you don't like the Southeastern Conference. I don't like the Southeastern Conference. I don't like any of you guys either. I only love my beloved Golden Gophers. All of you are evil. But just because the SEC, we got to get, the Southeastern Conference is sitting on a gold mine. Their next contract, and it's going to happen much sooner than most realize. Notre Dame can't keep up with that. Notre Dame cannot keep up with that. They're not going to be able to keep up with that. Now, for Notre Dame, it is so important to that university to be able to have at least the resources of their top competitors, the top competitors in the Big Ten, the top teams in the SEC, the ACC, the couple that can pay for their top line players. It is so important to Notre Dame. Because Notre Dame, as strong, as incredible fan base, resources, the institution, there's so many great things about Notre Dame. But they've also got challenges at Notre Dame. Believe it or not, they've also got challenges. They cannot keep going to the well over and over and over and over again to their boosters. They cannot afford not to invest as much in football as Alabama does, as Ohio State does. That isn't going to fly at Notre Dame. We're talking about student athletes. Notre Dame has student athletes. Notre Dame, they cannot go and get anybody they want in the portal. Notre Dame's got high standards. I know now a lot of people are going to go after me here, but that's fine. That's what I'm here for. I'm just telling you, as they stand alone, they're not going to be able to keep up. After this next wave of media negotiations, we talked about the last one where we were like, okay, Notre Dame might be able to get there, might be able to get there, might be able to get there. They might get enough from NBC. The ACC is going to be a different ACC. I think our Notre Dame source, and we have talked to him. We had a long conversation with him last night. He's a gentleman that enable us to break we were the ones who broke the news on Notre Dame men's hockey joining the Big Ten Conference because of this gentleman. He told us over the last months, and we reported to you that Notre Dame, number one, we talked about it, the relationship between Notre Dame and ACC, it really doesn't even exist, to be honest with you. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Like, it does, but it doesn't. The relationship between Bavacqua and Phillips, fine. But the institution and the ACC, one of the leading indicators to this was when Notre Dame did that deal with Clemson on the sidebar type of deal. Notre Dame had to try to secure their future, secure their football scheduling. And we're going to get to Clemson in a little bit. We are going to get to Clemson, so just hold on. So the Big Ten, I'm telling you right now, and it doesn't matter, I'm never going to get an invite to the Big Ten Media Days already for the reports that I have broken for Big Ten. Not for Big Ten, but about Big Ten. The Big Ten Conference is getting a little confident about Notre Dame jumping. There is a reason. I don't think we've had that hot bubble of action, but there is a growing confidence about Notre Dame. Because of just the pure reality that it's not going to be just the Big Ten who's going to try to do the right thing by their member institutions. It's going to be the Southeastern Conference as well. And all of that pertains to ACC institutions. Notre Dame can barely keep their football independence on the tracks right now. Can you imagine trying to keep it on the tracks after what is probably most likely going to happen within the next couple of years? It could happen within the next couple of months. So the question is, and this has always been the question, it's always been the question, is Notre Dame, of course they're at the center of the stage. Now they weren't for a while there. We had North Carolina, but North Carolina is unable to extract themselves. It's way more complicated, and we got information on North Carolina. In fact, we'll go to North Carolina next. Some of this has already been known, but we're now, tonight we're going to push the envelope just because of the Ross Dellinger article. The Notre Dame, so the Big Ten is feeling more confident than ever on Notre Dame. It doesn't mean that they're the first one to jump, but after what is about to happen, if it happens in the next couple of months or the next couple of years, they do not see how Notre Dame doesn't jump in the Big Ten. Notre Dame is not going to join the ACC, guys. Notre Dame is not going to join the Southeastern Conference. In our very, very strongly held opinion, the information leads Notre Dame to the Big Ten. Now, maybe they're not the first to jump. Maybe the SEC and the Big Ten has to pull the thread first. But I don't know anymore. I think Notre Dame could be the first one to jump. We'll keep an eye on that. But that is a growing because of all that is going on. The relationship, forget about Notre Dame and the ACC. The relationship within these four power conferences. Yeah, they're going to work professionally. Yeah, they're going to vote on things. Yeah. But the Big Ten and the SEC, you want to think they're evil. You want to think they're good. However you want to think about it, that's fine. But the relationship, there is a philosophical differences between these four power conferences. Some of that is driven by economics. The issue right now with the cap, right? You saw this, the open doors. Let me show you this. We're not leaving the theater, guys. We're not leaving the theater. Not tonight. We're staying in there. You saw this Ross Dellinger open doors projecting the college athlete compensation rev share third party. Big Ten's annual average spend exceeds all others at $48 million, SEC $44 million, ACC $28 million, Big 12 $24 million. So that is the NIL market, what is being spent. And then there was the article by Ross Dellinger. Most believe raising the revenue share cap is a must, but agreement on the figure remains difficult. An agreement on the figure remains difficult. I'm going to skip these parts here. I'll get to the end of the article here. Among the four elite commissioners, the discussion centers on a key question. What should be the new cap? Schools in the SEC and the Big Ten are spending on an average around $45 million annually on total athlete compensation, according to figures released Thursday by Open Doors. We just went through that, right? Those in the ACC and the Big 12 are spending an average of more than $25 million, according to Open Doors. This is what makes it so difficult to reach an agreement. The market in the Big Ten and the SEC on average is likely 15 to 20 million higher. Many in the SEC and the Big Ten believe that a 60 million cap is about right. I take that right now, says one SEC athletic director. But those in the ACC and the Big 12 feel more like a $40 million cap. Okay, that's all we're going to cover on that. Notre Dame wants that cap up high. Notre Dame wants a high cap. They also want a luxury tax, which I think the Big Ten and the SEC will probably end up doing if they go silo. They're probably going to try to push that possibly within everybody if we can get some sort of agreement with the four conferences. But that's what Notre Dame agrees with the Big Ten and the SEC on that. Let me North Carolina. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there is something that I'm going to talk. I have not talked about this in the open, but again, tonight, we're going to push the envelope. With the Ross Dellinger article, with the Cruising Cantwell bill happening, with all this stuff percolating, Ross Dellinger reported that there has been accelerated talks. Okay, that is what we've been reporting to you all. The chatter behind the curtain. The chatter behind the curtain. They're keeping an eye, and I'm going to let you know about it right now. They're keeping an eye on the North Carolina Board of Governors website in their meetings. Their next scheduled meeting is July 23rd. It is believed that if anything, if that Cruz and Cantwell bill, passes the House, it looks like it's gaining momentum before August recess and all that. That there might be an emergency meeting before July 23rd. So I'm just letting you know the chatter behind the curtain is keeping an eye on that. I'm not saying they're hitting the refresh button every 10 minutes, but whatever North Carolina tries to do, attempts to do, it has to be in public. Not that particular part of the meeting, but the meeting scheduled, the agenda on conference affiliation has to be public. This is something, now the meeting itself can be behind closed session, as we at Peek Around the Corner have been told. But the schedule of the meeting has to be in public. And the agenda has to be in public. An agenda item. So we're all keeping an eye on that. So, North Carolina, as we've said over and over again, I don't want to rehash things, but they are very well, there's been a lot of conversations, a lot of interest at North Carolina. We all know that. It is something, North Carolina is something that the SEC would love to have as an SEC member, and so would the Big Ten. North Carolina's got a lot of, there's a political issue there, so we're going to keep an eye on the North Carolina Board of Governors. Okay. Miami. Well, that's an easy one. That is an easy one. We don't really even have to talk about why they're back on that stage, right? The university president being outspoken. We covered that over and over again. The University of Miami Facebook and Twitter account, the social media team at Miami put the University of the President's words out there again a few days ago. Thank you, Jim Skinner. I do appreciate it. We'll go over your comment here in a moment. You made a very important... thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Frank Potter, we'll go over your super chat here in a little bit. And OBD Dunn, we're going to go over your super chat in a little bit. I do apologize. I know there's people that want to listen to the information and then head out to the rest of their lives tonight. So I appreciate the super chats, and I know I tell you I will try to get to them as quick as I can, but I do want to get to this information as quick, So thank you, Jim Skinner. OPD Dunn, Jim Skinner, thank you very much. Frank Potter, appreciate it. So Miami, I don't have to spend any time on, right? We spent a lot of time on Miami lately. You all know at Peek Around the Corner, we've had Miami right below North Carolina and Notre Dame as a Big Ten target. And that's where we have been for a few years. Let's take the Utah Ute cheerleader. That is a Utah Ute cheerleader who is peeking around the curtain at the Holy Smokes Theater. So, Ross Dellinger, in his article yesterday, mentioned only ACC schools, right? Only mention ACC schools. Over the last 20 hours, the people that I trust the most, the people who have helped me in the last 12 years, Utah is still on the Big Ten candidate list, even for the quick strike. In fact, Utah, again, one of the biggest reasons why they did what they did when it came to Ultra Capital is to prepare themselves if the opportunity arose that they could afford whatever they needed to do to get out of the Big 12 to join the Big 10. Because their exit hatch is not fully constructed yet. We do not know what it would look like. And I don't even know if Utah would truly know what it looked like. But again, if we are in a situation in which you announce that you're leaving to another conference and you don't join that other conference for a couple of years, you have time to figure that out in the courts and the money. All what Utah wanted to do was to make it so it was possible. Why did Utah do that? Why did Utah do what all that they could do to make it possible if they got the invite? It's because they have received enough information to know that there is a shot. Utah did not do this on no information coming back to them. Utah did not do this because the Big Ten said, you're a good university, but you're probably not going to be, you really don't have a chance. The Big Ten has not indicated that to Utah. On the other hand, there is no wink, wink, nod, nod situation going on. That's not how this works. I don't believe any promises have been made to anybody yet. We at Peek Around the Corner do not have Utah as a top tier Big Ten. We don't have them top tier, but we have them on the next tier. And we have been saying that for months. We said it before Brett McMurphy said it out in public. This information is known to those that chatter behind the curtain. Utah is a viable Big Ten candidate. So they are the one non-ACC school that we have in the theater. And what we have learned in the last 20 hours, as of right now, that hasn't changed. Utah is still on the list, even though Ross Dellinger's article is only about ACC schools. And even though I don't think anybody really know how it's going to work if Utah got the a Big Ten invite. Okay. So the title of the show is Update in the Holy Smokes Theater, with three schools, three wild cards emerging. Utah is one of those wild cards. Utah is a complete wild card in this, in that if things happen just right in the Big Ten dominoes, Utah could be that last team scooped up in this wave. They could be. I have not made that prediction. I'm definitely not making that report that they're going to be scooped up. But they are a wild card. They still remain a wild card in all of this. We got that on. We're I don't know how to express this. We know this to be true. Another wild card in all of this, and this is wild. This is wild. What I just said about Utah, what I just said about Miami, what I just said, this is a change. That Clemson Tiger over there, I am going to give this a 70-30. We at Peek Around the Corner are going to give this 70-30. %70 Southeastern Conference, 30% Big Ten. I know that sounds crazy. I know that I sound like a complete lunatic when I say that. But again, I got to give you the peek around the corner. There has been communication between Clemson and the Big Ten. We can confirm that here in the last 20 hours. We've been told that. I think Clemson is a long shot. But remember when we talked about the Kevin Gustowicz thing? And I said it went from a super, super long shot to a long shot. It's a long shot, but my goodness, Clemson wants to make sure. This is another reason why we do not think that anything is quite done yet anywhere. One example of many. Because we have believed that Peek Around the Corner, that Clemson to the SEC is pretty locked in. If the Southeastern, especially if the Southeastern Conference does the big scoop. Clemson, Florida State, try to get North Carolina, whatever they have to do to get North Carolina. But now there's like a 30%, we were told that. Now, when I heard that, I did not sit there in silence. I asked why. Clemson, I had no problem with Clemson. Beautiful place, beautiful school, beautiful people, incredible football brand, all of that stuff. We all know the positive of Clemson. But Clemson is not a Big Ten university. Big Ten, you know, you need to get enough votes in the Big Ten. But it sounds like, from what we're being told, that Clemson has made the effort, and just like the Utah thing, the Big Ten has given Clemson enough feedback to say, yeah, this is a possibility. We might make this work. You got to give us assurances on your research, you know, and all this stuff. I asked more questions about Clemson. I asked a lot of questions about Clemson. And then those answers to the questions about Clemson, we've got answers about Georgia Tech. Which is more plausible? Clemson becoming and growing into a Big Ten institution by 2035, or Georgia Tech being able to garner more attention, more exposure, more eyeballs, more value in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia Tech is a great university. That is a Big Ten university from day one, if they would join. But, and this is not a shot. Well, it is a shot, but I'll use the University of Minnesota, for example. Okay, I'm gonna rip on my school, so no one is offended. Okay, except for the Gophers out there. The University of Minnesota, as a collegiate athletic value, has a ceiling on it. And it would take miracle after miracle after miracle to bust through that ceiling. It's just the way it is. It's a university. It's a research university. It sits in a big city. It's got incredible high standards. All that is good. It's in a pro-market town, pro-professional. There's only so much. I've said this as an example, right? Nebraska's brand value is so much bigger than Minnesota, and it doesn't matter how many times Minnesota beats Nebraska on the football field. It's just not going to change. That's where we are with. That is the reality of Georgia Tech. They're investing. They're investing. They're doing, all that. That's great. They're winning games. But they're still like the 5th or 6th. They don't even... Clemson gets more eyeballs on them in the city of Atlanta than Georgia Tech. So which is it? Is it more likely that Georgia Tech can break through their ceiling, or Clemson emerging as a somewhat lower level Big Ten institution in the next 9 to 10 years? Because Clemson is not at the level at Florida State is right now when it comes to Big Ten, becoming a Big Ten university. But again, there's things that we don't know here at Peek Around the Corner. There's things that we don't know at Peek Around the Corner. There's something to be said that Clemson got Kevin Gustowich at the helm, and there is a lot of respect in how Clemson does business. And of course, the brand value, the growing state of South Carolina. 70% Big Ten, 70% SEC, 30% Big Ten. And I would have never, ever, 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 ever would have said that. And I would have never imagined. So Clemson has become a wild card here. They're never mentioned. They have become a wild card. Now, again, I do understand people are going to accuse me of putting that out there to get the SEC to say, okay, we really have to. Look, guys, nobody cares. The SEC, I'm not doing this I'm not pushing any agenda here. I did, during the USC story, I did say, and I said it in the Los Angeles Times article, I knew that people were feeding me this information because there was a motivation behind it, because they did not trust Kevin Warren, and they wanted, the big money people wanted USC into the Big Ten when they found out that the USC was interested. I said it out in the open. I said it in my post accounts during 2022. So I know some information that I get is agenda driven. This Clemson thing is not. It's a long shot. It's a long shot. But I think Clemson is trying to make sure, and I'm not doing this for Clemson, but I think Clemson is making sure that they're looking at both ways, both angles here, just to make sure. But no, in our prediction, we do not have Clemson going to the Big Ten, long shot. But again, a crazy, crazy wild card has emerged. The other wild card in all of this is Duke. But Duke, okay, so again, I've had at least, I'm not going to name how many conversations. The last 20 hours, Ross Dellinger did not mention Duke. I don't think he did. I don't think he mentioned Duke in this article. I could be wrong, but I don't think he did. Duke is a great example of there is something here that really wasn't about the USC UCLA going to the Big Ten, Oregon Washington going to the Big Ten, Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC, Rutgers and Maryland going to the Big Ten, Utah, Arizona State, Colorado to the Big 12. This wave, if it's about to be triggered here, it's heavily influenced. It could be heavily influenced by an SMU situation. SMU threw themselves in to the ACC. SMU helped grease the skids for Stanford and California. SMU paid their way in. If Duke does that, maybe not to the extent that SMU did, or maybe even more. There's a few different things we've been told. That is a wild card unto itself, because if Duke does that, if they're willing to pay for themselves, which would help pay for somebody else, that gets to the question of how many for the Big Ten. 20? 22? 24? It is impossible it's impossible to believe that the Big Ten would go to 24 in this next wave. It's almost impossible because for political reasons. Can you imagine the Cruz and Cantwell bill passing or failing and then the Big Ten goes to 24? Holy smokes. It doesn't seem possible. But to go from 20 to 22, you're going to have Notre Dame and Duke involved in that, most likely. Florida State, over the last 20 hours, I don't think Florida State is a 70-30 like Clemson. Clemson 70% SEC, 30% Big Ten. And again, I cannot believe I'm saying that live, but that's what we were told and all the information behind it. Florida State is more like a 90-10. 90 Southeastern Conference, 10 Big Ten. Over the last 20 hours, I don't think there hasn't been any indication that Florida State has a viable shot in the Big Ten, other than Florida State's shot is to go to 20, Big Ten go to 20, and be with Miami. But because of all the chatter that we have received about Notre Dame, about Duke, we haven't gotten to Virginia yet, I think it's a 90-10 Florida State for SEC Big Ten. I think the two emerging chalks is Miami to the Big Ten, which has been that for years, and the SEC. ESPN is just not going to allow that Miami-Florida State thing to happen. And we've got it at 90-10 Florida State. Don't think there's much of a shot at Florida State as a Big Ten school. Even though they're more of a Big Ten institution than Clemson on June 25th. There's no question about that. But because of the interest in Miami and the SEC interest in Florida State not being teamed up with Miami in Big Ten country, I don't think Florida State is going to be a Big Ten member. Again, it's June 25th. I'm giving you the information the last 20 hours. In Virginia, again, Virginia is going to try to go where North Carolina goes. But my goodness, the Virginia thing is even more complicated than the North Carolina situation. Because North Carolina, they somewhat have it is written down what they have to do. They know the reform of the North Carolina Board of Governors. They know they have to go within with the financial plan. They know they have to get the votes. They know the process. Virginia and Virginia Tech, do not know the process. And the SEC and the Big Ten, they do not know what Virginia process is. So it's even become more it has become more complicated in the eyes of the people that have been talking to peek around the corner. It is hard to imagine Virginia being left behind. It is very difficult to imagine Virginia being left behind. So at this point, again, peek around the corner. If we had to take our shot at this, if we had to make a prediction now, we made our last one on April 9th. This is not a report. This is a prediction. We believe that Miami, Notre Dame, Duke, and then you've got Virginia, Utah, in the wild card Clemson as the fourth Big Ten member. But that is just a prediction. That is not a report. In the SEC, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and a fourth. Notre Dame and as we started this program singing Irish Eyes Are Smiling, When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, the Big Ten in the last 20 hours the Big Ten has grown more confident that Notre Dame's going to have to jump into the Big Ten boat because of what's about to happen to the ACC. Is the Big Ten wrong? The Big Ten has been trying to get Notre Dame for a long, long time. And we at Peek Around the Corner have continued to say the walls are closing in on Notre Dame. Is Notre Dame going to find a way to keep quasi-football independence for the next 5 years? If the SEC does get a North Carolina, does get a Florida State, they do get a Virginia, they do get a Clemson, and the Big Ten gets a Miami and a Duke, whatever, can Notre Dame really afford to stay football independence? Big Ten people don't think so. The math just isn't mathing for Notre Dame. We do not have a spotlight team tonight. I have been on the phone or on email ever since last night. So just let me recap this real quick, and then we'll go to your phone calls. Miami, there is a growing optimism in Big Ten country about Notre Dame either jumping first or jumping last into the Big Ten. Miami, there's a lot of confidence around Miami in Big Ten country. North Carolina, we're looking at July 23rd, 2026. That is the next scheduled meeting. Everybody is seeing if there is going to be a meeting, an emergency meeting before July 23rd. The chatter behind the curtain keeps looking at their website. You should probably as well. This is what we're looking at, just in case the Cruz and Cantwell bill passes the Senate. If it doesn't, then there might be some pressure off of all this. The Utah Ute cheerleader peeking around the corner. Utah prepared for this situation. And now this situation is unfolding. Utah has given themselves an opportunity. They have done what they needed to do to give themselves an opportunity. They have received enough positive information from the Big Ten to give themselves a shot here in this next realignment wave. Clemson has emerged as a wild card, favored to go to the Southeastern Conference. Clemson's not going to get left behind. It would be the ultimate shocker if Clemson and Florida State got left behind. 70-30 for Clemson. 70-30. Florida State 90-10. SEC 90. Big Ten 10. Virginia is a... Virginia wants to attach itself to North Carolina. North Carolina's got all those Board of Governor issues. Georgia Tech, woo! I don't know, guys. We're not seeing it right now. We're not seeing it right now. Not in the last 20 hours. And Duke is a wild card. If the Big Ten goes to 22, Duke is a possibility. There is your recap. Okay, I do want to go to your super chats here. Super chats. I do appreciate it. We got Frank Potter. Frank Potter. Hold on a second. I got to open this up here. Hold on. I do declare Notre Dame joins the ACC as a full member. Frank Potter. Okay, you know what I'm going to do on that? I'm going to give you a 5-pointer. That is a 5-pointer, but it has to have, no, look. And I do declare commitment if it doesn't happen, if there's not a result by the end of the national championship game, we have to deduct the points. So anything that might flow out of past the national championship game, that is going to be negative points. Not just your prediction, any prediction. Okay? Frank Potter, I do appreciate it. $10 holler. Notre Dame joins the ACC as a full member. That is most definitely a 5-pointer. Thank you, Frank Potter. I appreciate your generosity. Thank you so very much. We've got Jim Skinner. Super chat. Jim Skinner, the Constitution, Article 1, Section 9 and 10, both prohibit ex post facto, no action taken by the conference before the bill is signed into law can be addressed by the law. And that is why that's the interpretation of a lot of people in the SEC and the Big Ten. That is why the quick strike is in play. If there is a fear of that bill passing before President Trump can sign, put the pen to paper, that's why the quick strike is in play. Thank you, Jim Skinner. I very much appreciate the $10 holler. We got OBD done. $10 holler. OPD done. I'm late, but I'm hitting the refresh button every 11 minutes, Greg. I think you may be talking about the Board of Governors website. Thank you, OPD done. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your $10 holler. I very much appreciate it. Christopher Huda. Christopher Hooter, LSU Tiger. Greg is so cold he thinks Clemson can go to the Big Ten. Usually, Greg the Cold comedy bits do not work when it comes to this stuff, Hooter. I have not been known as Greg the Cold when it comes to this stuff, but I do appreciate the $2 holler. And again, I'm only reporting to you what we were told in the last 20 hours by the people who have helped us break the news over the last 12 years. And I am going to take it serious that Clemson right now is considered 70-30. 70 still a, big favorite to go to the Southeastern Conference. But we got the word about a week ago. We did an early peak cloak and dagger episode. Clemson does the big move. I don't know. Look, I don't know what Clemson is presenting. There has been communication between Clemson and the Big Ten. And I don't know what Clemson presented the Big Ten when it comes to research. I don't know what Clemson did. It would be great if we could be in that meeting, but we're not in that meeting. But there does seem to be a Clemson now is considered a long shot, but a real long shot, a viable long shot. And long shots do come in, right? Clemson is, and I'm not ripping on Clemson, but they're not a Big Ten institution, not today. But can they be one in 2035? Can there something that Clemson can present? Everybody's presenting everything to people, right? Miami probably has presented plans for a new football stadium somehow in the next decade on campus, somehow, some way, whatever. That's what happens here. Everybody's given their best image of themselves. Duke is being aggressive everywhere. That's how this thing is. Miami, all of them. Florida State, look what Florida State's been doing. They're presenting that to the Big Ten. They're presenting that to the Southeastern Conference. So, I don't know. Something has changed a little bit when it comes to Clemson. They're trying to get two possibilities. Possibly leverage for SCC. Eva Badger, $5 holler. Thank you, Christopher Hooter. I think the Big Ten will go to 24 with Notre Dame, Miami, Duke, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Kansas. We did not hear anything about Kansas in the last 20 hours. But that doesn't mean that's not happening. I'm just, just telling you. We shall see on that. All right. Thank you, Eva Badger. I very much appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for your kindness and for your continued incredible generosity to our show. I appreciate it. We've got Steven is in the house. $5 super chat. Greg, love the show. Would the SEC take top 8? ACC teams and put a wall around SEC to keep the Big Ten out? North Carolina State, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, and Duke. I do not have a crystal ball. All I can do is give you the best peek around the corner in college football that we can provide. And my answer would be probably not. And the reason why that is, even though the Southeastern Conference is sitting on a gold mine, you're just doubling up too much there. How many? North Carolina State, and Duke, 3 North Carolina schools in 1 state. Miami, Florida State, along with Florida, 3 schools in the state of Florida. Clemson, along with South Carolina. You're only adding what, 2 states in that. I don't think the Southeastern Conference would be interested in that. If the Southeastern Conference, I understand the idea of going on defense, right? I understand that. I get it. And I think in partial, the Southeastern Conference is going to play some defense. I think they're going to take Florida State off. I think Florida State is going to become a Southeastern Conference member if they go to the Power 2. I think they're going to make sure that the Big Ten doesn't get a Miami and a Florida State. But other than that, the Southeastern Conference, they want North Carolina. The Big Ten wants North Carolina. So, and we believe the Southeastern Conference has the advantage. That's going on offense and also going on defense. The Duke situation, can we completely eliminate that Duke could join the SEC along with North Carolina? You can't completely eliminate it. But all that we have heard at Peek Around the Corner is Duke being mighty aggressive with Big Ten folk. And I'm talking more, I'm not even just talking about the Big Ten. Duke is being incredibly aggressive. If Duke does not make the Power 2, it wasn't because of lack of effort or lack of money, right? They just did not have enough, whatever, football brand, whatever. Thank you for the $5 holler, Steven. I don't think that's a possibility. But who knows, sir? Who knows? Okay. Greg, do you have any SEC sources? Yes. Now, is it developed like Big Ten? No. No. Now, on Kansas, we reported about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, Kansas could be the 20th school in the SEC. We reported that. We got dragged over the coals a little bit on that because we had SEC sources tell us that Kansas would be something that they would look at. And they're probably all looking at them. There is no way, Azon the Kid, that Kansas is just talking with the Big Ten. They're doing. You don't just go all your eggs in one basket. Clemson's not doing that, even though nobody looks at Clemson as a Big Ten school. They're not putting all their eggs in the SEC basket. Clemson did not go to the courts and fight their ability to talk to conferences and only talk to one of them. They're talking to both of them. They're talking to the Big Ten. And Kansas there's no question they're talking to both of them. Did your SEC sources tell you Florida State to the SEC, or is that BTM? Everybody that I talked to, that is the consensus. Dave Chauncey. It's about 90-10. 90% Southeastern Conference, 10 to the Big Ten. That's where we're at. That's what Peek Around the Corner believes. And it's about 70-30 Clemson, which I would have said about 3 or 4 months ago, I would have had it 70-30 Florida State, 90-10 Clemson, but it's flipped a little bit. But both are chalked to the Southeastern Conference. Kenneth Maynard, Florida insiders know that Florida State is SEC bound. Mohr Simmons, there are several schools in the SEC that want Florida State. Great relationships. That most definitely could be true, Buckeye. I mean, that Clemson info could be a Big Ten smokescreen. I don't know. I don't think it's a. I'm pretty sure that's not a smokescreen, but I can't be 100%. I'm gonna tell you guys, we do have a Clemson. We do have a Clemson. I'm not going to label this person. That is telling us the same type of where they believe Clemson is at, and they would not be a part of the Big Ten smokescreen. That particular person probably would have it like 60-40, but overall about 70-30. Aficionado, I'm not going to describe the person. Clemson to the Big Ten is like Notre Dame to the Southeastern Conference. I would agree. Notre Dame's alumni, their money, it's not in Southeastern Conference country. Clemson's alumni and money is not in Big Ten country. I think Clemson, yeah. I think what has happened here, pretty sure Clemson isn't just, they're gonna play the field on this, SEC and Big Ten. And I don't know how big of that whole Kevin Gusowich, the president of Clemson, you've got to think that that is playing a part in this. But, yeah. Is USC still helping Utah? I don't know if helping is the correct word. I think it's, or maybe it is. Maybe they are pushing for it. They very well could be. We know that they are supportive of a Utah edition. And for those who missed it, Penn State is supportive of Miami. We have heard that in the last week. You know, the Big Ten has 18 members, and their interest, it's pretty diverse, right? So they're supporting different additions. And we started off the program by letting you all know that the Big Ten presidents had a recent meeting. We've learned this in the last 20 hours. We're talking recent meeting about possible conference expansion. The presidents, we know that was a hot bubble of action that happened, that we've learned that it just happened. And today, we've already been through the article. The Detroit Free Press, the Michigan president, comes out and says one of the things we do not like about that bill is the limitations of conference expansion. The Big Ten wants to expand. The reason they want to expand is because they've been told that if they expand, it's going to be better for their member institutions. Just like what happened when they expanded with USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. It has helped the conference. They think if they go to the southeastern part of the country and they expand, or if they expand with Notre Dame, or if they add one out west in the south, if they expand, they're going to make more money, not less. The Southeastern Conference, they're sitting on a gold mine. They want to expand. Eventually. Because they're being told by, they're not going to expand to dilute the members' value. They're trying to the Big Ten believes they have increased the value, the bank accounts of all Big Ten members in the recent addition. And there are parts of the country that they want to expand into. They want Big Ten country to be at least somewhere in the southeastern part of the country. The Southeastern Conference wants to expand their footprint. They want to diversify their student population. They want to take the Southeastern Conference brand that is so powerful. They want to take that internationally in the next decade. And the Big 12 is doing all the planning, John Grove. They're doing all the planning. They're doing what the Big Ten and the SEC is doing. We got nothing in the last 20 hours on Stanford, California. We got nothing. If there is something, we don't have it. Wild Ute. Now, I said that during the Washington and Oregon situation. Every time I came on live, which was every day, and I said, Washington and Oregon, 17 and 18, it's going to happen 5 months from now or 5 years from now. That's that was prime information. And I kept saying nothing on Stanford in California. And then it happened, Washington and Oregon. We're still not getting anything on that. Now, of course, and I think everybody would agree, if Notre Dame, if they're going to be the first to jump instead of the last to jump, being the first to jump would probably help Stanford out a lot better than if Notre Dame was the last to jump. Okay, I've gotten a few notes here since the start of we did this live show. Let me check it out here, and then we're gonna open up the phone calls. I will also add this, the Utah the money that it takes to get out of the ACC next year, that's a whole lot of money. Don't be surprised if this would happen, if the Big Ten expands, if the SEC expands with ACC schools, that there's not an ACC school or two ACC schools that basically have this all lined up, the same thing that Utah's got all done. In other words, they're going to have some third party to get in business with them to help pay for that exit fee and then get a slice of the new media contract that a school would get within the new conference. Some sort of deal like that. To exit the ACC, of course, it's going to take, $129 million if it happens next year, $147 this year. I mean, Utah has worked proactively to give themselves an opportunity. Other schools, I think, have worked proactively, but it's not out in the open because they haven't officially pulled the trigger on any type of third-party deal, just in case they get an invite. I'll give you an example, Florida State. It would not surprise me at all if Florida State got an invite to the Big Ten or the SEC, that they would have some third-party business dealing to help the exit fee and to help the bridge to get going. And then that third party would get a little slice of Florida State's growing media money in the next decade, 20 years. I think what Utah did is going to be replicated by at least possibly one or two schools if they get an invite. Mohr Simmons, Florida State will have the money to get out of the ACC. They're holding aces. Kenneth Maynard, the SEC is undervalued. Absolutely. We did a live show yesterday called the SEC Sitting on a Gold Mine. Big Ten is too big to get all the presidents on the same page. The village idiot. There's a lot of truth to that. There is a lot of truth to that. Kalani, there are two main audiences in college football, one in the southeastern footprint and one in the Midwest. College football has very little audience outside of it. Now, the Big Ten, they wanted to get into the East Coast, Upper East Coast. They wanted that New York media, and they wanted to go west. And that West has put a lot of money in the pockets of the Big Ten schools. But overall, you're correct. I mean, most of the audience is in the Midwest and the Southeast. The Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten they're different animals. They're completely different animals. They're not going to merge. They're not going to merge. There's no Super League. There's nothing. I've been saying this for quite a while. The SEC is not that into the Big Ten. They're different. We talked about that great interview that Wendy McMahon had, the former president of Paramount. She flat out said they're different. And even though the SEC has all these high ratings in the football, and she said the Southeastern Conference is more valuable than the NBA, they're going to get a big monster deal next time around. But she also said that it's more valuable for CBS to have Big Ten, not the SEC, because of all the local CBS News affiliates in Big Ten markets, and they make more money outside of the game when they have the Big Ten. The Big Ten is more valuable to CBS. And she went on to say, there's a lot of variables in all this. There's a lot of things to look at in all this. And that's why markets are really important for the Big Ten. Extremely important. A diversity of markets is important for the Big Ten. The Big Ten, it was important for them to have an East Coast. It was important for them to go west. That's why Miami is sitting there. That's why Georgia Tech is even in the theater, because they have Atlanta. It's why Clemson is now a 70-30, because Clemson has a lot of value in Atlanta. It's why Utah is a candidate, because of the market. I know a lot of people, I still see people taking shots at the Salt Lake City market. You're not going to be taking shots at the Salt Lake City market 15 to 20 years from now. And of course, everybody wants it in North Carolina and Virginia. Everybody wants it in North Carolina and Virginia. ACC is in there. That is their, that is where it was birthed. But the SEC wants in there, and so does the Big Ten. Many Florida State fans think Minnesota is gone after one more bad year. Okay. You're talking about Mike Norvell? Oh, not Minnesota, Mike Norvell. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Mike, he should not be the head coach this year. I'm rooting, you know what though? I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for Florida State to get this turned around. But I got to tell you, it has not hurt their brand at all. It just has. These brands do not die easily. So Florida State is just as valuable as they were when they went undefeated and they got screwed. Yeah, Mike Novell. I thought he meant Minnesota, and I'm like, Minnesota's gone. Well, I'm thinking about LaMelo Ball trade with the Timberwolves, and I'm thinking, if the Timberwolves collapse next year, Tim Conley is gone. That's my brain went to that. No, the brand is not tarnished. No. I mean, is it a little bit more difficult to recruit because of all the negative recruiting and all that? Is the ticket, is there a little bit of a decline in ticket interest? And of course, merchandise sale, of course. But the brand has not diminished. It has not tarnished. I went to the Timberwolves. I didn't even go to, I'm thinking, oh, that trade. I don't know, man. Okay, we're going to go to the phone lines. Going to the phone lines. Let's go. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. I have had, I'm not going to tell you how many discussions for the last 20 hours. This is where we're at. Nothing is imminent because, again, there's just so many things that have got to be settled. But acceleration of talks means we might be heading into the negotiation parts of these talks. And if that happens, then things can become imminent. So if this bill looks like it's going to pass the Senate, if it does pass the Senate, I don't think the Southeastern Conference, I don't think they can afford to wait. I don't think the Big Ten can afford to wait. Nobody is starting from scratch here. When I say nothing is done, nothing is settled, that's okay. But we're not starting from scratch. Every one of these schools that we talk about has had all of these conversations with both conferences. The acceleration in talks, you know what that means? Okay. I'm going to hang up the phone. Hold on. I'm going to hang up the phone. I'm calling a timeout. I apologize. I've got to explain something here. I've got to explain something. I'm calling a timeout. When Ross Dellinger says an acceleration of talks, you know what that means? It means that all of your presidents are getting included in the discussions. All of your athletic directors are getting included in the discussions. When Mark Coyle came out, I don't know when this was. This was like a year ago now, I believe. Mark Coyle. Whether it's 2 days or 2 years, I do think there's going to be continued fluctuation. I can tell you peers in the Big Ten are trying to find revenue, right? What are our peers in other conferences trying to do? We have the best media deals in the country, so there's going to be more movement. More movement 2 days or 2 years from now And that article was like a year ago. That's Mark Coyle, Big Ten athletic director, who is one of the longest tenured athletic directors in the Big Ten. When you have accelerated talks, that means you're not doing, it branches out more than just the committee in your conference. Now everybody's included. Because they all want to get that, if we have to act quickly, what number, what schools, when, like what schools, what would be the median number, what is the process? Talking to the media partners. Fox, ESPN, NBC, CBS, all of them are being talked with. Accelerated talks doesn't mean that the SEC and the Florida State are having even more talks. It could include they're starting to negotiate though. But the more accelerated talks is in my opinion, is within the conference. In fact, I know as we started with this program, I reported to you all, we know that the Big Ten presidents had a recent meeting on conference expansion. Recent. Like really, really, really recent. In fact, so recent, I think that might have been what was leaked, potentially, allegedly to Yahoo Sports. There was a recent meeting among Big Ten presidents. Accelerated talks. Okay, now let's go to phone calls. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. We are not having the spotlight tonight. We did the Texas Longhorns on June 24th. Yesterday we did Clemson, June 22nd. We have gone over, almost 60 schools. We got a few more to get to. Tomorrow we'll be back at it. Spotlight Series, PATC. We've also are up to number... Nope. Yep, number 95. We've gotten 95 I Do Declares in our I Do Declare World Championship. So, all right. Anybody wants to call in? If not, that's fine. That is absolutely fine. We'll lock it up unless there's super chats that come in or comments that I find incredibly interesting. Doesn't look like anybody wants to call in, so Denver is twice the size of Salt Lake City, and Phoenix is 4 times the size of Salt Lake City. Yep. And the Denver market is considered the Minneapolis market, which in the Phoenix market demographics isn't as valuable as the Salt Lake City market when it comes to products and services. Now, again, maybe Arizona and Arizona State are candidates, but we have not been told that at all. Just got it. We only can tell you what we've been told.
From
Rock and Rant.
Rock and Rant, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. I do appreciate it.
Sure. I'm just trying to figure out who's having more of a heart attack right now. Utah fans or Florida State fans?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that because I don't because they're nervous or
Well, I mean, Florida State fans, they're going to find, I think they're going to read into Clemson having a better shot of the Big Ten as a shot, but they're going to get in the SEC. So I don't know, but maybe some fans are mad that might happen, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
As opposed to them and Utah fans thinking like that they're. So you're saying there's a chance zone is actually more than just they're saying there's a chance is probably making them excited in a different way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I don't, I try to preface this by saying we don't have them on the first tier, but we've gotten, just in the last 20 hours, we've got enough Utah information to know that they are a candidate. I mean, they just are. And I know people get all upset when I say that. They don't get upset when I say Miami is, or Florida State is, or Clemson, or Virginia, or Georgia Tech, or Duke, or North Carolina, but they sure get upset when I say Utah. I don't understand it, but then I'm not from that part of the country. I don't quite get it. But they are a candidate. They might not get in if that makes other people feel better. But they definitely are a candidate. And I think that's going to come out. That's already come out, but I think it's going to come out again. But people aren't going to believe it if they read it. So the Florida State thing, all I can say is the last 20 hours, it's more of, Florida State, SEC, that looks to be, if the SEC expands, if this happens, that's the most likely place. They're becoming a big chalk to go to the Southeastern Conference, not so much the Big Ten. And I only can, I talked to, it's more than one, it's quite a few people, and they're all saying the same thing. So I gotta deliver the information how I receive it. But go ahead, Rock and Rant.
Yeah, and what I'm saying wasn't even remotely a shot at Florida State. I just think that because the SEC is great, and if that's where they're going, they're fine. And I'm not really worried that either Miami or FSU would let that rivalry die, whichever way it goes.
Yeah.
Unlike another team in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Because it's different, but it is. I guess ultimately, my question, and I don't know whether you know the answer or what have you, is, but you frame it all the time that ESPN won't let that happen. Does that mean that Florida State isn't getting dictated, or do they really only have a single choice? Because ESPN doesn't control their future. Half the Florida State fandom hates ESPN because of everything, the way they were treated, right, years ago over the college football playoff. And I realize there might be politics, like literally politics this time, when it comes to whatever the state of Florida government and Florida State and the presidents and Gainesville and statements that have happened and all that stuff that has been talked about before. But it's not like South Carolina for the Big Ten has a very fundamentally different government. I mean, in terms of party control, and Florida State generally draws pretty damn well, even when they're having a challenging season. Like their floor is pretty big, and if you're going to take two teams from the Southeast, it just seems like Fox and the Big Ten would want to bring that rivalry in, no matter what the other optics and politics are. But I guess I understand that everyone's very particular about their current situation.
Let me. Can I just jump in for a second?
Sure.
I can tell you that Ron DeSantis jumping in with to support this Saving College Sports Act, because he jumped into this thing with Cody Campbell and Randy Levine, and that did not help within the Big Ten circles. So,
I hadn't caught that, so I wasn't sure, and I wasn't sure if that was before or after the part that it's hard because there were people who on paper signed support things of it, right?
Yeah.
But then that was before everything, like they're supporting the concept of legislation before they knew the expansion blocks were in, either at the first level on the P2 and then the P4. So it's always hard to figure it out. But didn't Florida State, weren't they among the ones who did not actually sign a support letter?
Yeah. But Ron DeSantis was part of the construction of this Saving College Sports Act. Yogi Buck is saying that's total BS, but that's what we've been told at Peek Around the Corner. And that didn't. Now, the Big Ten has already had some issues, some of their presidents, with how the leadership of the state of Florida has worked on some of these issues. And now that's another one. So all I can do is tell you what we were told here.
Oh yeah, understood. It's more questions than questioning. And I'm guess that my other question is trying to interpret. Are you of the mind that Utah is more of an option now than Duke is for the Big Ten? Like, has something substantively changed, or just because they're another wild card because they might have the private equity money?
What was that? I'm sorry.
I'm saying, is Utah more of an option now? Are they on the same lines as Duke now for whatever reason, or is it just another card on the table?
I don't think they're on the same line as Duke. I think Utah is probably, if I had to rank them right now tonight, I would have Utah ahead of Georgia Tech, but behind Duke. And behind Virginia, of course.
And this is part of the beginning of the show, so I'm not sure if you answered this.
Yeah.
Is this reaction all about, or not that things are going to happen, I know we're not there yet, but maybe there's conversations. Is it completely dependent upon whether a trigger happens, like the Senate sends this legislation to a floor vote that increases it, or is it more of they're going to do it now no matter what, because even if the legislation can't pass, it's possible things are going to happen because now they've seen what the future can be. They've seen who's allied against them, the power to in different forms, and they need to do it. Or if, like the SCORE Act in previous months, comes crashing to the ground. Because right now it seems like the people in the Protect College Sports Act are on the mindset that I think it's going to pass. But then there are people who are educated about this as well, who are adamant that it will not. And there doesn't seem to be anybody in between who doesn't know.
I'll tell you what, I will, and I know you weren't here at the start of the show. I think the very first thing I said, because yes, there's a lot, if this passes the Senate, woo, holy smokes, Rock and Rant. If this passes the Senate, then everyone's going to get, then there's going to be some quick hot bubble of actions, and people are going to line this thing up.
Right.
But if it doesn't pass the Senate, what we were told in the last 20 hours, and I basically started the show off with this, is the damage has been done. Now, does that mean that things are going to go as quick as they would if it did pass? No, probably not. But there is a, and I sound I sound horrible when I say this, but these conferences, they're going to work together. They're going to be professional, but they're all separating from each other. The Big 12 and the ACC, they don't trust. There is no trust here, Rock. There's none. There's none. The Big 10 and the SEC, they want to get they want to get the cap up. The Big 10, the Big 12 and the ACC, you can understand why that they would fight against that, right? They don't, their disagreements are growing. Some of it has to do with economics. Some of that has to do with philosophy. Some of that has to do with what just happened in the past with the Big Ten and the SEC. They keep threatening stuff. Some of that has to do with, the Big Ten and the SEC with the media rights. Of course, they don't want to share them. The SEC's next contract, the Big Ten's next contract is going to be, they're separating from each other. It doesn't mean they're going to be, they're not going to be competing against each other anymore, but there is a separation that the Big Ten and the SEC, the only thing they have in common is they both are at the top when it comes to generating revenue, right? But there's so many differences between those two. These things are separating from each other. And so this has caused even more of that. This is really like, damn, this thing ain't coming back together again. Even if they don't go in their own silos, we're gonna come out of this thing different than we were before we got into this, right? It's more separate. If it's not silo, it's a further tether. It's a more of a separation than ever before. So it's still going to happen. Rockland, these conferences had their plans, and this has sped up this timeline, but all this is going to happen regardless, as we have been told for the last couple of years.
Wild. And you're finally of the thought that the pressure around Notre Dame is building, that they may have no choice in finally doing it.
How do they, you know, I asked the question, I mean, how do they even, I mean, what like, so the Big Ten goes to 10 conference games, and they go to 20 schools, and let's say they take a Miami and throw whatever team in there, Miami and Florida State, and Miami and whatever, it doesn't even matter. Miami, Duke, Miami, Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech. The SEC takes 4 schools, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia, however it breaks. I mean, can Notre Dame, how would they even schedule their games? I mean, the Big 12 is going to go to 10 conference games because they're going to have to.
Right.
Where does they're not going to be able to keep up with the ability of the SEC to generate revenue, and the ability of the Big Ten to generate revenue, and the Big 12 looking out for themselves, and they're going to keep they're going to, and who knows, there could be this third conference, best of the rest, and they're going to have a bunch of conference games. How does Notre Dame survive all that? I don't think they can, or the Big Ten doesn't think they can.
Understood. Well, it sounds like both you might need some sleep depending upon how these calls are going, or
today I didn't even today has been all day on this. The little general is out of town. Perfect timing. She's out of town. I'm not going to say, it was planned, so nothing bad. So I've got a few days here where I'm just focusing on this, and I haven't, there are people watching, like there are certain people that are watching different things, right? We brought it up that the next North Carolina Board of Governors meeting is July 23rd. Everybody's seeing if they schedule something before July 23rd. They have to schedule it in public. The agenda has to be in public. If they discuss conference affiliation, it can be under a closed session, but it has to be the agenda has to be in public. We've been told this the last 20 hours, but the chatter behind the curtain, that there are people checking this website constantly. So that is where we're at right now. It's crazy out there. So I'm sure you're hearing a lot of Miami stuff. So imagine that plus times 15.
Except for the difference is now it's super quiet, Greg. It's super, super, super quiet. So that makes me wonder even more ultimately. Yeah. And I'll get up and hopefully someone else will jump on. I'll just say I'm watching the comments on the screen as you're going. Guys, like, it's one thing to talk about politics because politics does impact this, but the politics conversation that's going on in this chat, man, most of us are not here for it. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Beautiful call. Mohr Simmons, Mr. Seminole, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. I appreciate it.
Yes, Greg. Great show. And I would like to say once again to Rock and Rant, because I think when we first started out, I mean, we was butting heads, but, you know, that's what hurricanes and lows do.
Yeah.
Like I said, once again, congratulations. And I do say congratulations because they're going to get there to the Big Ten. That's a done deal. He ain't got to sweat on that. He going to get there.
Wait a second. Mohr Simmons, can you hold on a second, sir?
Yeah.
I apologize, sir. When I get back to you, you have all the time you want. I just want to, Yogi Buck. When I talk about its politics, I'm not talking Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. I'm talking when I mentioned Ron DeSantis, all I said was he strongly supports the Saving College Sports Act, which a lot of people do, by the way, and I can understand that. I mean, there's a lot of governors. I mean, look, the Senate, the senator of Ohio, Marino, just came out and said, I've got 44 schools here. He supports it now. Before he did not support it. Now he supports it. I never said that, Flores. Yogi Buck, man, you gotta. When I said that Ron DeSantis supports the bill and he was part of the people who put it together, I'm not. Those are factual statements. That doesn't mean. I'm just saying that's a factual statement. It's not like I'm not ripping DeSantis. I'm just saying a factual statement. That's all I'm doing. I'm not ripping on his politics. I probably generally agree with his politics. All I'm telling you, though, is the Big Ten, some of the presidents have had issues in the past about, and they've had more issues than just the state of Florida, other states, and they've had issues with Big Ten. And I'm just bringing up the fact that Ron DeSantis supporting this act so strongly has not helped the situation. Some of these Big Ten presidents, I got to tell you, man, and I've been trying to tell people, if I went into a room with them and had a coffee and coffee cake, I probably wouldn't have anything to talk to them. I have they're academic elite. They're a whole different kettle of fish. They're not bad people. They're just not my people. But these are the people that are making these decisions along with the media partners and all that. And some of this becomes a little bit heated. I don't know. I don't want to go on and on and on. I understand that, Yogi Buck. I understand that. Thank you for clearing that up. Mohr Simmons, go ahead, sir. I apologize. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, look, I'm not a big fan of our governor here in Florida, but sometimes he do make a right call.
Yeah.
What I'm calling back, getting back on the sports, what I was calling about is so far everything is falling into place. Falling in line the way I thought it was going to fall, and from some of the information that I received as well. Now, one thing, initially, I would say maybe about a year, maybe 2 years, I was leaning with the school, Big Ten, and looked like that's where everything was going, Big Ten. but I started leaning as of last year towards the SEC. And then when we had a few games here with the SEC, everybody started really taking notice. I mean, we played LSU 2 times, and we played Alabama, we played Georgia. Of course, we played Florida. So when we started looking at the numbers we were running up playing them schools, then we were like, okay, Well, we can go in here and hang with the schools into the SECs and everything. But one thing I want to question is this: the Big Ten do not have a pro rata agreement with Fox. Now,
Yep.
the SEC have a pro rata
Yep.
with ESPN. Now, if they bring in Netflix on board, which that'd be great because that's more money, and they partner up, they would have the money for whoever coming in, what share it may be. Because initially, what I was hearing, and I was hearing a lot of noise coming from the Big Ten side, which was, well, if Florida State, Miami, if Notre Dame wasn't coming in, wasn't interested, if Florida State and Miami was coming in, they was coming in at half share. And I was like, no, that ain't going to work. That is not going to work. So now I'm relaxed because I see where we're going. And like I said, I at least knew around about 6 or 7 schools, I mean, big schools in the SEC that was supporting Florida State coming into the SEC. So, yeah.
I think if you, fortunately, we have a relationship with this Florida State money perch who's been, who's been on this thing, and he's been absolutely incredible. His information. If you ask him, if you ask the boosters, they would all support SEC over the Big Ten. For a lot of. For a lot more than one reason, a lot of reasons. So I don't think, I think if the Florida State had a choice, they would take SEC. If Clemson had a choice, they would take SEC. I think almost everybody would choose SEC. There's probably a couple of exceptions, and those exceptions might end up in the Big Ten. We'll see. I think Miami overall would probably pick Big Ten first, but there'd probably be a lot of Miami people that would want the SEC. I don't think it would be a landslide by any means. I think most Dukies would probably take Big Ten, but some of them would, But most of all, if everybody, most of those schools in the Southeastern Conference part of the country, they would choose SEC over the Big Ten, and you cannot blame them because travel, culture, money, I think most of them would.
Greg,
yeah.
Well, Greg, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You, but I would normally agree with you, but initially on the school administration, I'll say that the administration was interested in the Big Ten.
Oh, yeah, no question. And I think they still are. Just because I say it's 90-10, look, I'm not reporting, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not reporting that things are done, things are imminent. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just the last 20 hours. This is where people believe that.
Look, Greg, you ain't got to worry about that with me. Hey, look, I already done shifted from the Big Ten to SEC. Because to me, I think it's good. It's going to help Florida State on many fronts, especially when it comes to baseball, softball, basketball. We good. We are good on that. And I think the fan base, and I'm a booster as well, but I think the fan base, everybody would be happy for us because we got a taste of actually having Alabama playing in Doak Campbell Stadium.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till we get Texas into Doak. And that'll be a good game.
Yeah.
And then I look at all of our games in Doak Campbell will be sold out games. It would be hard pressed. You got to I tell people get your season tickets and be ready.
Yeah.
That'll be about it. But you have a great show, and I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of it.
I appreciate it,
All right,
Mr. Simmons. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Thank you. got a super chat. Great call by the Seminole.
Call from
Studzilla.
Studzilla, can you hold on for just 1 second, please?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. We've got a $10 holla. Phil Graninetti. Something like that. Phil Graninetti. I apologize, Phil, if I'm saying the name incorrect. It would not be the first name I say incorrect. It definitely will not be the last name I say incorrect. So, but thank you, Phil. I appreciate the $10 holler. I've been saying for 2 years we'll end up with 2 2014 conferences with divisions of 6 by region. So I think Stanford and Utah out west, Notre Dame with Michigan, Miami, Duke, and Virginia. Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it. Not only that, but you know, when this thing happens, and it is going to happen at some point, unless this bill passed, I don't know. I mean, this is going to happen. Unless we have a world war or something really bad happens, economically, the forces, this is going to be the next wave. And then after this wave, maybe there's going to be a fracture. The Big Ten fractures, SEC fractures, the conferences get too big, top half wants to, all of that is still possible. Again, realignment never sleeps. But this wave is going to happen. It might have been sped up, but it's going to happen. During this wave, after whatever the Big Ten and the SEC decides to do, then we're still going to have this, now what happens, because there's going to be economic forces, the economic forces of consolidation, whatever is left, after the Big Ten and the SEC do what they do, you're still going to have a Big 12 with great fans, you're still going to have the ACC with great fans, and those schools, the top of the whatever remains in those 2 conferences, there is going to be this, like they're going to backfill with G6 program. There's going to be this force that's going to potentially push consolidation among those 2 conferences, schools in those 2 conferences. And we're all going to be talking about that next. Let's say all this happens and Louisville is sitting there in the ACC. And they just had another deficit of $30 million in their athletic department. They're going to want to see what they can do, right? Is this ACC viable? Do we need a new ACC? Do we need to get out of here? Is somebody in the Big 12 and ACC, can we combine forces? There's going to be a lot of discussions around what happens after all of this. So this is going to go on for quite a while. Go ahead, sir, Studzilla. I appreciate the call. The floor is yours.
I'm going to start you off with a joke before I get to my question.
Got it.
Greg the Gold is so golden. How gold is...
How gold am I?
Greg the Gold... Yeah. That's your line. Sorry, I should have told you that in advance. Greg the Gold is so golden.
How gold am I?
He's so golden that when he finally wins a $5 bet, he celebrates with a champagne shower, a victory lap, and a formal retirement speech.
Okay, I will do all that except for the lap.
Yeah. Well, we don't want you to retire from this because we enjoy the show.
I appreciate it.
So I have a question I wanted to ask a couple of shows ago, but I couldn't get in. If the PCSA passes and the worst of the worst happens, like all the doom scenarios happen, like, from the perspective of the people that don't support it, would it have any impact on affiliate members of conferences, like how the Big Ten has Notre Dame and in hockey, and they have John Hopkins for lacrosse, and like I didn't see any affiliate members for the SEC, but I know there's other conferences with affiliate members in various sports.
So what's the question around affiliate members?
Would it? Have you seen any language that says like the conferences would be forced to drop their affiliate members, I guess.
I haven't seen any language in that. No.
Okay.
Look,
I was just curious.
I do know that the Big Ten had they changed their philosophy on affiliate members. They did the Notre Dame 2017, John Hopkins, and then they were looking at affiliate. They were looking at affiliate members. I know for a fact. I reported on it. After I reported on it, about 3 days later, the Minneapolis Tribune reported on it about North Dakota possibly being an affiliate member joining the Big Ten in men's hockey. And I had an uncle, Norm Hoffman, who passed away last year, who was a huge booster for North Dakota. He built their engineering department. He built the wing on the biggest hospital in the state of North Dakota. And he, I've already reported all this in the open on Minnesota 247 after he passed away. The Big Ten had a philosophy. They were going to do more affiliate memberships. But then COVID happened. And that completely changed their, because some of the schools, some schools, because economic, they just could not do during the COVID what the Big Ten schools could do, right? So they didn't want to, they completely changed the philosophy. And now the Big Ten, I don't know if they'll ever add another affiliate member, to be honest with you. But go ahead, sir. I know that wasn't your question. I just wanted to bring that up.
No, it's just an interesting topic because I haven't really heard anybody talk about it, but a lot of conferences do have them, And the other day you were talking about possible Pac-12 expansion.
Yeah.
I nominate that if Ohio and Toledo were the two teams or two of the teams selected, and it leads to the breakup of the MAC, that we officially rename the Pac-12 the Mac-12.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there probably is a chance that the Pac-12 is going to get to 12 schools, at some point.
Yeah, they do seem destined.
Yeah, I think they're going to. I think they are planning that out. I just, I don't think their candidate list is all that long. I think there's only 4 or 5 schools that could potentially, New Mexico State, Ohio, Toledo, UConn. I don't think, North Texas. New Mexico, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the one problem with New Mexico State is they were never allowed in the Mountain West Conference because of their issues, and they weren't called into the Mountain West Conference when it desperately needed teams.
Yeah.
And they haven't been called by the Pac-12 yet. I'm not saying they couldn't be called. Everything is possible. Let's be realistic.
Yeah.
The only thing that's probably about not realistic is the only thing that's not real is Ohio State going to the SEC and Alabama going to the Big Ten. Or you get what I'm saying with that. But it just feels like if New Mexico State joins, it is because there's no other options.
Yes.
And it's that or you don't have enough. Yeah.
Yep. But
that was all I really wanted to touch on. There's a few of those things, and one last thing on the topic of expansion. I'm an Ohio State fan, and I would welcome any of these teams into the Big Ten. I think every one of them would be a good fit for one reason or another. Some for more than just the football, but one of the ones that I would like to see because of our history with them is Clemson. They were the team we played. I forget what bowl game it was. It was like the Peach Bowl or the Tangerine Bowl or something. It was in the late 70s, and they beat us. And the guy from Clemson said something that must have pissed off Woody Hayes, and he got on the field and punched him, and that ended Woody's coaching career.
Yeah.
Because he went too far.
Yeah.
And then there was another really important postseason game that we lost to them about 10, 15 years ago. So it's just, it would be nice to have a chance to play them more frequently and maybe get some vengeance, or who knows what would happen. But That was it. Thank you for taking my call. Appreciate
All right,
it.
I appreciate it, my man. Thank you. Great call.
Yep.
Beautiful. We got ourselves a super chat from Christopher Hooter. Christopher Hooter says Studzilla had a good question. Affiliate members, yeah. I mean, does can a conference expand in a sport, in an individual sport, with bringing on an affiliate member, or is the non-expansion, is that just full member schools? Because if it's just if affiliate members can be done, then there's ways for conferences to work around that, right? If that bill would pass, for example, SEC could say, look, Clemson, Florida State, join us for football only. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Studzilla, for the great question. Thank you, Christopher Hooter, for the $2 holler. I appreciate your generosity, sir. I really do. Thank you. I do want to thank everybody who has donated to the program today to help us keep the lights on and grow the channel. Bruce Harris, Frank Potter, Jim Skinner, OBD Dunn, Christopher Hooter, Eva Badger, Steven, Ryan Brooks. How fast will the ACC reload? And with who? I think they would reload pretty quickly. And I would just suggest, the University of South Florida, Tulane, East Carolina, the top teams in the American. I think that would probably happen. Thank you, Ryan Brooks. Thank you so much for the $2 holler, LSU Tiger. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Phil Granetti. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it. Thank you, Christopher Hooter. Thank you for all the great comments in the comment section, the great phone calls. We still got 240 people in the house, but I think we're going to lock it up only because I got a feeling that tomorrow is going to be a surprising, very interesting Friday. So, and I do know, there's other things that I wanted to get into tonight, but because of the last 20 hours after the Ross Dillinger article, we had to go back in the Holy Smokes Theater, and I wanted to tell you what I was told within the last 20 hours after the article. Now we have a new, so now the next time we go in the Holy Smokes Theater, we've got this, where this is our baseline right here. So again, as we have reported to you well over the last year, the talks have been going on, the positioning has been happening. Ross Dillinger's report of yesterday, the talks have been going on. The talks have been going on, third party, but now the talks have accelerated because of the Cruz and Cantwell bill. I got a feeling there's going to be more reporting on this, local reporting on this, reports coming out of North Carolina, reports coming out of Clemson, reports coming out of Tallahassee, Florida State. There's going to be local reporting. I think people are starting to do the FOIA request. A lot of stuff is going on. I know that stuff is going on. A lot of stuff is going on. A lot of NDAs have been signed. There's a lot of cloak and dagger going on here at College Football, and we are going to deliver to you the information that we can as fast as we can until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. And as always, God, family, Golden Gophers.